Come on in, everybody. We'll give got a pretty full house tonight. Um Pretty well represented here, but yeah, I mean, there's not much funner stuff to talk about than spending an hour going through this new FAFSA, I think,
Not
right?
much funner stuff.
Funner
So,
stuff, period.
very good English we're putting out here.
Is that
It's
not
going to be a
allowable?
lot of fun today. Couldn't be funner than it's going to be tonight.
Funner stuff? Yeah. Um, yeah, probably some of you guys are experiencing some adventures already with this new we're having some fun with the very much ironically named FAFSA Simplification Act. I think we'll be able to give you some sanity checks tonight, right? There's no silver bullet, and every single situation is different. And, but the theme here that you're going to hear us belabor, but I think it's important to hear more than once. This FAFSA is breaking all over the place. It is in the middle of glitching for so many users to no fault of their own, to no fault of your own. So I can all but guarantee you, for a lot of you that are experiencing frustrations, the answer is just like, that's a system thing. That's a FAFSA thing. It's not a you thing. We got to do our best just to be patient as they're sorting this out behind the scenes. And I think there's going to be a little bit more relief in the coming weeks, right? The FAFSAs are going to process at the end of January. We'll talk about what that means. So we've already seen improvements since it first became available December 31st, and here we are 2 weeks and changes later. We're moving in the right direction. So again, just our, I think, main job right now is to help people not hit the panic button. Just understand you're not late, you're not behind, you're not missing out on money. The colleges are at the mercy of the system too. So you'll hear us say a version of that, each of us, probably more than once tonight, because if anything, I think that's the headline, right? Okay, so without further ado, let's see a couple things here. Number one, tell us where you're from. If you're open to
Pop
it,
that in the chat.
pop that in the chat. Tell us the graduating class of your student. I think we're mostly anticipating 2024s here tonight. I'm sure there's some overachievers here. But by way of quick introduction, for those of you that are new to us, my name's Matt Carpenter. I got my partner in crime, Peg Keough, with us. We're representing each coast here. I'm just north of Boston, Salem, Mass. I live right over the bridge in Beverly, Mass, and we got Peggy out there just outside of Seattle. The class of 2025 will be the 20th class that I've guided through this process. So pretty amazing. I've been doing this on the front lines for 2 decades here. I've been in, I would guess, tens of thousands of FAFSAs now. I don't know, certainly thousands. Peggy's got an astronomical number as well. We've been in hundreds collectively this year. So I share that to say I think we're going to be a resource and have answers regardless of your situation. And that's what we're here to do. That's what we're about, is to educate families, hopefully bring some clarity and chill people out a little bit, right? Another thing that we say every day, at least multiple times a day, is no kidding, you're stressed out. It's your money and it's your kids, right? Two of the most provocative things, I think, for any of us, certainly for those of us that are parents. And this system does not make it easy. These extra glitches add another layer. So you're in good hands. I promise you, we're going to do our best to chill you out, answer your questions. We won't get to all of them tonight, guys. We're going to do our very best. We won't get to all of them tonight. We'll make sure that you understand how to interface with us after tonight. And we take extra good care of folks that show up live. We always show them a little extra love. So I'll tease that and kind of explain more at the end. But Peggy, I've talked too much already. The fairy godmother of financial aid is
Oh, all of a sudden I can't hear you.
well, you froze for a second, so I think you might have froze on your end, buddy. Hopefully it's
Huh.
not me, but yeah, your camera is frozen. I know you've had a tough time today with
Okay,
your.
I just couldn't. People are saying I can hear both of you. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. All right. I guess I'm back. Apologize for that. Yeah. Peg Keough, for our newbie people, and we have a 23 on here too, which is great. Yeah, I've been doing this for well over a decade, was in the financial industry, and a lot of you that have been on before, I have twins. I've been through it with both of them. Yeah, there was some stress, but I really don't think it has to be as stressful as it is. And that's really what gets me out of bed, is to guide families through this process. And this year, yeah, there's been a bump in the road. All we can count on is change in this world, and that's what we're getting this year. So there are a few 25s on here. You'll hear all this stuff. Fingers crossed by next year, we will not be having all these glitches. So it'll probably be smoother sailing for you. So yeah, and so tonight we're going to show you how to do this. We're going to talk about what we're seeing and just really talk about best practice, because we've seen glitching and we've seen how it happens. So it might, we're going to tell you how we think you should do it. If you've already done it another way, it's okay. It's all right. Just take a deep breath. So if we didn't say it, which I didn't think we did, put all your questions in the Q&A. You can keep telling us where you're from in the class and in chat. That's great. But put your questions in the Q&A and we'll do our best to get to as many as we can. And you can be anonymous in there if you want. And we will be sending a recording tomorrow. We don't send the slides, but we're more than happy to send the recording so you can share it with family members, watch it again. So you'll be able to, you won't miss out on anything. Or if something you want to hear again, you'll be able to. So let me share my screen. Yeah, we're having some funky snow weather here, so I don't know if that's part of my situation. So, all right, so let's kick this off. If you're new to us, welcome, and we are College Aid Pro, and this truly is our mission. This is what gets us, Pat and I, out of bed every day, to empower you to shop smarter for college, to understand how this works, to not miss out on pieces of this journey, and that helps relieve stress within your family, with your child, and helps you save money. So it's a win-win-win. So there we are. All of you should have received an email earlier today. So we saw that a lot of you already did this, but if you haven't set up your free MyCap account, we strongly encourage you to do it. Matt's going to put this link in the chat, mycap.collegeaidpro.com. You just hit get started for free. It takes about 4 minutes on board. You can change all of your inputs once you're in there. So if you're not sure about something, you can just put it in and then go change it later and refine it. But it's really powerful because in a minute, Matt's going to talk about student aid indexes, and you're going to be able to see yours. He's going to show a sample family, and you're going to be able to see, listening to him, then, oh, this is where my family fits. Oh, I am eligible for need-based aid at that school. I'm not eligible anywhere. What does that mean? It gets you start getting into the mix. And if you're a 24 parent, which a lot of you are, it's still important to do that because you're going to be able to upload award letters. You need to understand your family for when you get those financial aid award letters, which is the next step after submitting financial aid forms, to know if it's a good offer. If you have no idea where your family fits, you don't know if you've got a good offer, and you can't do as effective an appeal, which is that next step. So really important, strongly encourage you to do it. If you've already done it, have it set up on the side on a different computer so that when Matt's in there, you can be looking at yours. So I'll let you take over here, Matt.
Yeah, perfect. And obviously, we know everybody's here to specifically to focus on the FAFSA tonight. I promise that's going to be 85% of the content, but we think it's important to spend just a few minutes talking about how this piece of the puzzle fits in the whole, right? And not lose sight of kind of not just look at the FAFSA in a vacuum here, and have a little bit more context, because again, in our experience, that's relevant, and people get too FAFSA focused and lose sight of some other pretty important things here. So just bear with us as we zoom out for a couple minutes and just really quickly, especially if you're relatively new here, what is financial aid? In its simplest terms, it is any discount from the sticker price. And this is relevant to the FAFSA because for some colleges, if we want to get any type of discount, regardless of our financial situation, we have to complete and submit the FAFSA. Okay. And there's three, again, broad buckets here, three ways that we get a discount from the sticker price. We like the first two because this is free money. This is money right off the top. We're not paying back. So that's need-based grants. This is financial aid that's given based on our family's financial strength or lack thereof, and then how generous or not generous a particular college is. And again, this is all tied to or starts with the FAFSA and in some cases the CSS profile. Merit-based scholarships, most of us are familiar with these, right? This is money that we're getting from colleges just based on the student's credentials. However, a lot of people are surprised to find out, sometimes too late, that some colleges will only consider you for scholarships if you've submitted the FAFSA and in some cases the CSS profile. We always use NYU as an example. They got the third most applications in the world last year. They're not going to consider you for scholarships, regardless of your financial situation, unless FAFSA, and in their case, CSS profile has been submitted. The last type of quote unquote financial aid, self-help, for the most part, this is a sexy term for loans, right? This is money that, yes, it might come off the tab initially, but we're going to have to pay it back plus interest. It doesn't mean there's not some advantageous programs there are. We make pretty much a universal recommendation that students take advantage of the federal government direct student loan. You want to take advantage of that program. And again, there's a ton of reasons why you should, even if you don't need it. You have to complete the FAFSA to be eligible for it. Okay, Peg, and then next slide. And in terms of determining your eligibility for need-based financial aid, something we say again a whole bunch of times every single day. Every college is different. Every family's financial situation is different. But there's one universal formula that colleges use, at least as a foundation, to determine your family's eligible for need-based financial aid. And that's their sticker price, right? The technical term, cost of attendance, minus your SAI, your student aid index. So this pops up right. Actually, the one I saw today, Peg, the SAI popped up right away as soon as we submitted it right there.
Nice.
Yeah. So again, it showed me another evolution there. So this is the dollar amount that gets assigned to your family, largely based on your income and your assets. If that number is lower than the cost of attendance at a school, so let's say we're applying, I don't know why I'm picking on NYU, but I am, but I'm applying to NYU, they're $90,000. My SAI is $40,000. That means I am potentially, you see underlined, potentially eligible for $50,000 in need-based aid. Generally speaking, I'm always paying at least my student aid index. So who's going to be responsible for that $50,000 difference? It depends on the school. Some schools are really generous, meaning they meet 100% of need. So you just pay the 40, right? Just being $40,000. Some schools like NYU, not as generous. So they're not going to come all the way down to 40. You're going to have to pay some additional amount. And again, there's schools on all ends of the spectrum. Okay. And let me just quickly show you, kind of hopefully bring this all home before we dive into the FAFSA. So this is, I see that most of you created your accounts, which is awesome, right? So you see, even before you've submitted the FAFSA, you know what your SAI is going to be about, right? The foundation of what the Department of Education thinks you can pay for college each year. To further confuse everybody, most private schools, here's an example, Amherst, BU, NYU, they use what's called the institutional methodology, largely driven based on your CSS profile, less so the FAFSA. And oftentimes there's a range here because these colleges usually consider home equity to varying degrees, right? If you're a split household family, so if you're divorced or separated, they're going to require both households and consider both households information, whereas schools that use the federal SAI do not. I'm telling you more than you need to know. Just trust the platform here, guys. This is your source of truth. And what we're trying to do, among other things, is let you know what are these colleges actually going to cost you once you get your full financial aid packages. What are they actually going to cost you? Don't get distracted by the sticker price, right? And then we want to help you look into the future. What's it going to cost over 4 years? What we'll start talking about is February is private scholarships. Every private scholarship in the country is baked into your account here. And then we're going to tell you once you get accepted and you get an award, you're going to upload it here. We're going to say, number one, here's how to translate this. And number two, did you get a good deal? Did you get a fair deal? So again, I think some context is a little bit helpful because the FAFSA is related to all of those, but we don't want you to lose sight of a lot of this big picture stuff.
All right. And some of you guys are asking great questions already. Some of you, I kind of answered it and I said, stay tuned because here we go. I'm going to start answering a bunch of the questions divorced people are writing in. So I'm going to hit all of that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and
Oh,
before
this
I
is
take,
another one you like to hit, but I can hit it if you want.
I don't want Peg. I don't want. You know, but the before I get out of Peg's way here, just really quickly, because this is something that we again do on a daily basis. A lot of resistance to submitting the FAFSA. Everybody should, and these are just a couple of the big bullet points why. Right, a lot of people disqualify themselves from aid. They make incorrect assumptions. My colleagues didn't get any money. My neighbors didn't get any money. I'm not going to either, and it's a big pain. Submit the form. Okay, too many people leave free money on the table. You heard me talk about how the FAFSA can be, depending on the college, related to merit-based aid. We can't change our minds in most cases in subsequent years. 2 years from now, we lose a job or we have a younger kid enter college and say, now we want to apply for financial aid. Most colleges are going to say, sorry. When you didn't apply freshman year, you told us you're paying full sticker price for all 4 years. And he also heard me talk about the federal direct student loans. We recommend everybody take advantage of it, and you have to do the FAFSA in order to be able to do that. All right, Peggy, I'll get out of your way, bud.
All right, here we go. All right, so the first step in the process, and I'm guessing most of you have done this. If you haven't, you should do it right when we get done tonight. You need to get your FSA ID. The student, excuse me, absolutely needs it. Stands for Federal Student Aid ID. And at least one parent's going to need it. I'm going to go into the specifics of different situations in a minute or two of who else needs to get it, but it will be at least one parent and definitely the student. So you want to go to studentaid.gov. If you just Google create FSA ID, make sure you click on the link that's got studentaid.gov in it. That's where you want to be. You're going to create a username and password, 5 challenge / security questions. Keep this information in a safe place because you're going to need it every year. You're going to submit the FAFSA every year. And as Matt said, you're going to want to submit it. I just answered a question. It was funny. I was answering the question as you were answering the question, Matt, talking about why you should submit the FAFSA.
There
Just
you go.
submit it. Don't overthink it. You should just definitely submit it. Every family should. Okay. Oops, went a little too fast there. Okay. So if you've been paying attention to the media, and if you have a senior, I'm sure you have been, and it's all over the place, social media and news media. FAFSA went live December 31st into what they're calling a soft launch. I put on here the soft launch is over. This morning I got an email from FSA. They're still calling it a soft launch, but it's supposed to be available now. When it first went live, it would go down intermittently. Once you were in, it wouldn't shut down on you supposedly, but you could go in and log out and 10 minutes later it wouldn't be available. And they had maintenance time along the top. Now it's supposed to be available 24/7. But as Matt mentioned at the beginning, that doesn't mean that this is going to necessarily be a seamless experience. It could be, fingers crossed. I've worked with some families, poop, we're done, and others not so much, right? So as Matt said at the beginning, these glitches are not your fault. If you get an error and everything's red and says you're not supposed to submit this, then yeah, go delete it and move on. That's something you did. But if things happen, and well, I'll talk about them in a little bit when you have context to understand them, but there's certain things where people aren't getting SAIs. And so we'll talk about that before we stop tonight. But these things are known glitches. FSA knows it's going on, and what they've said is we're aware of it and we're working on a resolution. So we don't have the answer to when it's going to be fixed, or how they're going to reach out and let you know. So we just have to take a deep breath and sit tight. If you are talking to friends and family about this, that not everybody's FAFSA is going to look exactly the same. Some people are not going to need to input any income information. Other people are. I'm going to talk about that in a few minutes. So I know people love to take advice from family and friends when it comes to submitting financial aid forms, which we discourage because we want everybody to be doing it. But in this case too, you know, your sister's FAFSA could be different because her income's different and she might not be required to answer all the questions that, for example, you might. So just keep that in mind. So the big takeaway here is if you have a problem, just take a deep breath and you can try and log in later or the next morning, see if the glitch is addressed, watch email. Your child needs to watch their email. The government might email people and say, you know, send out a mass email to all these people that they know had a certain error occur and say, hey, go back in. And I know a lot of kids don't look at email. So you want to make sure that you're all over email. I'm just guessing. I don't know that they're going to do that, but you want to be on top of it. So if there is information, plus follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook. You're on our email list. We'll keep you informed as soon as we know, and we're all over it. Like we're watching this constantly. So what's the timeline here? The government FSA, federal student aid, is not going to send any FAFSA information to colleges until the end of January at the earliest. Normally, I know we had one parent here, class of 2023, you would submit your FAFSA 3 to 5 days later, all those colleges would have the information. That's not the way it's working now. So it's good to get in there and try and get it done, but no information's going to move until the end of January. Same thing with your child being able to log into their FAFSA and see what used to be called the student aid report, the SAR. It's now called the FAFSA submission summary. That's not going to be available to the end of January. It lists all the schools. It mentions if you could have Pell eligibility. You can't see that till the end of January as well. And that's by logging into your child's FAFSA, because you got to remember, this is their FAFSA. As a parent, you're contributing your information to their FAFSA because they're the student and it's their FAFSA. So what are you going to need to get in there? It would be good to have handy or figure out ahead of time the balances in your checking and savings account, because that's one question, and then net worth of investments. This is everything that you have, all your different accounts that are non-retirement. So not 401k, 403bs, IRAs, pensions. Those are all retirement accounts. Those don't belong on here. Real estate is part of this, but not your primary home. So the home you live in is your primary home. So if you own it free and clear and it's worth 500,000 bucks, that is not on the form. But if you have a rental property that's you just own, it's not in a business, or you just have a second home, a vacation home, that is on the table. And the equity is the market value minus all your liabilities. If that's you, you should probably book some time to talk to us, and we're going to talk about that at the end, because you want to make sure you're not overvaluing your property, right? You want to be honest, but you don't want to overestimate, and there's some strategies there. As far as income, most people are not going to need their tax return because that information is going to automatically pull from the IRS. You're going to sign an agreement when you're in there saying, yes, I'm okay. I consent for the government to send my federal tax information to the FAFSA, and then it will be sent to the schools and the few places that FSA is allowed to send it. That's part of the consenting process. You don't have a choice. In the past, you had a choice to manually enter. Most people will have no choice. I will explain the few exceptions in a few minutes. If you're a business owner, any business that you're an owner of, the value, or a farm, the value needs to be disclosed. There's no longer a small business exclusion. This is another thing you might want to get some help on, because same thing as your home, you don't want to overvalue your business. Some businesses will have a resale value, some won't. So putting 0 might actually be accurate, which might seem weird to people that they're not being truthful, but in some cases that is going to be the case. So keep that in mind. And then of course you need the list of colleges that you're going to plug in there. You can put in up to 20 schools. There might be some people that have more than 20 on their list, and you put in, I would put in your top 20. Don't worry about the order, and unless you're eligible. I shouldn't say that, because if you're eligible for state aid, different things, it matters, but the colleges can't see what you put down. That's my point. Put your 20 that you really want to get in there first. You're going to have to go back in, but you can't do that until it processes, which is an until end of January, so we'll just have to see how that goes. Now let's talk about how we get in there, how you get started. Just go to FAFSA.gov, and then it will take you to a different site, studentaid.gov/da-da-da-da-da-da. It's just easier to remember, FAFSA.gov. You're going to click on Start New Form, because you're starting a new form. And then this is what we recommend. This is best practice, is to input your child's FSA ID and password. They could be there, they could be right there with you. You're starting the FAFSA, you're starting their FAFSA. That's what we recommend, not logging in as the parent first. Okay. So go there. Then this is the flow for people that kind of like to see what's coming up. On the student side, and I'm going to talk about contributors in a minute, but the student is a contributor to their own FAFSA, and parents are parents, depending on the family. So the student's going to fill in personal circumstances, not hard questions. Then there's going to be an invite, and I'm going to show you that in a minute. So the student has to invite the parent into, not into their FAFSA, but to complete their FAFSA that will then be part of the student FAFSA. And I'm going to show you that invite in a minute. So that's how we recommend parents go into this. So the student, or if you're helping your child, you're going to fill in your information and hit send invite. And then there's some there's some student demographics, student financials, which is going to be pretty quick and dirty. I'm going to show you the asset page in a little bit. The student will plug in all the colleges, and you with your child, and then the student signs. Okay, that's the flow on the student side. So let's talk about who a contributor is, because you might be hearing this and thinking, what the heck is that? What are you talking about, Peg? So it's a loaded word, because when you hear the word contribute, if I was having people, give me an answer, most people would say it means I need to contribute money for my child. It absolutely doesn't mean that. It means you're contributing to the form. So please keep that in mind. Please don't let that be an objection as a parent to say, I don't want to do this form because I can't afford to contribute, or I don't choose to contribute, whatever it is. You need to submit this for your child to be eligible for federal, state, and most likely all the endowment money, the institutional aid that Matt was talking about earlier. So you've got to do the contributing. It doesn't mean you're obligated to spend any money. So who are the contributors? It depends on your family. So let's look at these bullets below, and these are for dependent students. If you are an independent student, we're not going to get into that tonight. That's different. Most kids are not independent. There's a list of questions you have to answer yes to. And I think most people on this webinar, we don't have independent students on here for the most part. So let's look at the first bullet. If parents are married, remarried, or unmarried living together. Unmarried living together is like they're married, and they didn't file married filing jointly. That's the way you filed your tax return in 2022, because that's the year the forms are asking about. If you didn't file that way, then both parents are contributors, because, as I said earlier, that tax information is moving directly from the tax return. You are going to consent to it. And if you didn't file together, then each person needs to consent to their individual tax return. Just like the next bullet says, if you're married, and you were married in prior year, but you filed married filing separately, that means you filed two separate tax returns within the same household. Each parent is a contributor because you're consenting to pull each tax return. So it's logical if you sit back and think about it. The third bullet follows suit. If you're married prior year, married now, you filed married filing jointly, only one parent is a contributor, because only one parent needs to consent to move that joint return into the parent's FAFSA that will then be part of the student FAFSA. Now, if you are currently divorced and separated, but back in the prior year, which was 2022, you were married, or you were maybe not, you were starting to get separated, but you filed married filing jointly, then this is one of the exceptions. This is probably going to be the most common exception where the form should prompt you to add your tax information manually, and you're only going to add it for the parent that is submitting the form with the student. And there were several divorce questions. So if you're divorced or separated, definitely tune in here if you're getting distracted, because this is for you, this information. So for the first takeaway, you might have to enter your information manually if it's different from, if your current situation is different from how you filed your taxes in 2022. So who is the parent that submits the FAFSA with the student? It's the custodial parent, which has always been the case, but the definition of custodial parent has changed dramatically. It is the parent that provided the most financial support in a year look back from when you're submitting the form. So if you haven't done it yet, and you're going to submit the FAFSA on January 19th, it's literally a year look back. It's not about last tax year. It's not about prior year. So if you're a family, if you're going to submit it very soon, but if you might have to do some of this strategizing quickly, right? But if you're a family that's 50-50, and a lot of people come to us and say, Matt, Peg, we're pretty much 50-50. Well, then try and figure out, and get help if you need it, to figure out who's more advantageous to be the custodial parent, because the other parent's assets and income are not on the table at all, right? And have the parent that is better to submit the form with the student spend a little bit more money on the child. And because it's real time, they can do it right now. Pay a soccer bill, whatever it is, right? But there is a big strategy. It's not just, oh, who paid child support and who didn't. There's a lot of things that go into providing support. So that might be something that you want to get some support on before you make that decision. Okay. Right. So that's how it works for divorced families. This I already hit. The responsibilities of the contributor are to complete their portion of the FAFSA, provide this consent. Without the consent, your child can't get any aid, but you are not responsible for paying any bills. You're just saying, here's my tax information, you can have it, and you can share it with the entities that you're allowed to share with. It's as simple as that. So you've got to do that. So I mentioned the invite. When it gets to that part of the process, which is right after the personal circumstances in the student FAFSA, this is what's going to pop up. And it's going to tell you to invite the parent. Now, it's kind of small and in italics, but I put a big arrow here. If you can't see it, I'm going to read to you what this says. Do not fill out this section unless otherwise instructed. So that means if you're married, you don't need to put the other parent here. Put the parent that's going to actually get the invitation and go in and do the FAFSA for both of you and pull that tax data in. If you fill this in, you're probably going to get an error message. You're going to have to get rid of all of it. Send the one invite unless you're told. They will tell you if you need to invite multiple people, and just follow the instructions and read carefully. So you're going to hit send invite while you're in the student FAFSA, and then you can go through the rest of the student FAFSA, put in the schools, and take care of it and sign it. The parent's going to get an email that looks like this. We strongly recommend that the parent goes into the FAFSA through this email. They're not going into their child's FAFSA. They're actually going into their FAFSA that will then be part of the student FAFSA. Okay. They won't see what the student put in or what you helped your child put in on that side. This invite is good for 45 days. People are all over this. They're getting the invite and they're starting it. So I don't think that's an issue. It can be resent if it isn't used. If for some reason you don't get this, if you check your spam folder, if you check your promotions folder, if you have Gmail, for some reason you just can't find it. We haven't had this a lot, but there are different glitches. You can always go to FAFSA.gov as the parent and put in your FSA ID and password and enter. You will have to enter information about your child because it won't be automatically linked. Whereas if you go in off the invite, the information at the beginning that you and your child put in on their FAFSA will auto-populate. So it saves you time. It saves you the opportunity to make an error by putting something in wrong there. So this is best practice to go in, click here, go into the FAFSA. Once you get in, it's going to say that you have some actions you have to do, and that's going to take you to your part, the parent demographics, parent financials, and I'm going to show you the asset page in a minute. Most of you will answer, do you have taxable grants and scholarships? You put that in there. All of you, if you're brand new to this, you're going to say 0. Do you have any foreign tax exclusion? Like I just talked to a dad earlier today who they spend time in Indonesia, so he had to put a number there. Most people are going to put 0. Those are manually entered, but all that tax data, like I said, for most families is going to move over, and it's not going to tell you. It's just going to move on to the next page when you hit continue, and it's happening behind the scenes. Okay. It's very different than last year where you were asked, do you want to do this? Are you sure you don't want to do this? It was in your face. It's not. This is all happening. It's called the direct data exchange. Okay. This is what the asset page will look like for the student as well as the parent. I just did a screenshot of the student one. Okay. So checking and savings, net worth of investments. Again, I went through that. That's 5. Oh, I might not have said this. So 529s, if you own them, you're only putting the 529 for the student in question. If you have 3 kids and you've got balances in separate accounts for all 3 of them, only the student that you're submitting the FAFSA for. And that's new. So that's a nice change. That will go in there. Your second, your any real estate that's not your primary home, anything that's non-retirement. Okay. That goes in there, and we already talked about your business. Don't overvalue your business. If you need to get some help, we're happy to do that. Okay. So that's the asset page. And then you're going to submit as the parent. And if all goes well, fingers crossed, because this is where we're seeing a lot of glitches. The student will get an email, not the parent. The student is going to get the email. And it's going to have a submission date, which you see right up here, January 3rd. That's very important. That's your proof you submitted the FAFSA. Okay. Also this DRN number that's always been on there, that means something in the back end, right? And then it's going to give you an estimated student aid index, what Matt was talking about earlier. What has been happening sometimes is when people, I've seen it most, when parents go in and they finish it, and then they go back to the students to sign with their child, and it won't let them back in. The student gets an email that says, your FAFSA has been processed, but it says we can't calculate the SAI because we're missing a signature. As Matt said earlier, you didn't do anything wrong. This is a glitch. It's happening all over the place. They know about it, and hopefully they'll get a resolution. Ideally, sometime soon, it'll allow you to go back in with your child, and whichever signature is missing, go through and do it and be done, get a new one. That's what I'm hoping, but that's just me and my hopes, right? I can't say that FSA has not told us that's what's going to happen, but whatever it is, it might be waiting till the end of January, and who knows? Who knows how they're going to handle some of this stuff. So hopefully they'll get it fixed. This is a really important email, though. As I said, it's your proof you submitted it. So have your child forward it to you, print a PDF, save it on your computer. If you like to print things and you've got a paper college file for the FAFSA, throw it in there, right? This is very important to keep. And so that's how that flows. So what is the deadline? I've shared a couple times, end of January is when it's going to be sent. But when do these colleges want you to do this? That's going to differ. Hold on. Got to turn off my heater. I'm getting a little warm here. That's going to differ from college to college, right? Most schools don't have deadlines before the end of January. There are a few that might. So as anything in this process, it's always important to check on the college's websites to see their deadlines. And then you want to shoot to get this in a few days before the earliest school. Unless you're eligible for need-based aid, state aid. Some states you want to be in the queue as early as you can. Most people, because there's been so much stress around this, are just trying to get it done, and I get it. You just get in there and get it done, even if it's glitching, but you get an email that says it's processed, but it's not all right because of the tech issues. You've done your part, and then you're waiting. So I think, that'll alleviate a lot of stress for people to just try and get it done. Because I know millions have been submitted, so they are getting through, and hopefully they're working on these glitches. So that's how the deadline piece works. You just, if there is a deadline before January 31st for the school, try your hardest to get it through to at least get a process date, even if there happens to be an issue with it, because that's your proof that you did it. Okay, Matt, I'm gonna turn it back to you to cover some of the changes. Or
Yeah, sure. And we won't spend too much time belaboring this because for the most part, we've hit all of them. So this is in some ways just kind of a review slide, and just kind of harvest some of these meaningful changes all in one place. And it's kind of like bad news at top, good news at the bottom here, right? I mean, one of the really significant changes is the federal calculation is no longer considering families that have more than one kid at college at once. So we're worried about effectively the cost of college doubling for a meaningful amount of families. Some families are going to have the rug pulled out from underneath them next year. Hold that thought before you hit the panic button, because the next slide we're going to talk about how to appeal, essentially negotiate with colleges, and that's going to be that's going to keep us busy this year and next, and for the foreseeable future, certainly. Divorce, separated families, right? Got a ton of questions here. Again, I don't want to belabor it. I think Peg spelled that out crystal clear, right? The new rule being who should complete the FAFSA, the one that provides the most financial support. We got a ton of questions, as we always do around this. Well, we're equal. What should we do? We can't make firm recommendations, right? Kind of here. We have to unpack that and spend some time. And we have kind of a laundry list of questions we'd have to bounce off you in order to make recommendations there. So I suggested, hey, look, you're going to want to talk one-on-one with us. And in just a few minutes, I'll kind of elaborate on what your options are there. And that's kind of similar to business owners, right? Same deal. Really crappy change where now it used to be if you had less than 100 employees, you didn't have to put the net worth of your business or the value of the business on the FAFSA. Now they got rid of that. So even if you're a sole proprietor, they want to know the value of your business. Again, today, like always, we got a ton of questions about this. How do I value my business? I'm a sole proprietor. Again, that's one that it really matters what you put there, but we have to, again, kind of get into we're usually dig into your tax returns and things like this before we can make firm recommendations there. So those are the changes that I think are just problematic, and ultimately, outside of being, adding some more confusion and complexities to the process, ultimately more people are going to pay more for college if we fall into one of those buckets, right? That's the harsh reality. But again, it's not all doom and gloom. And as a matter of fact, I just was talking to a reporter before we got on the interview, and her question, kind of in summary, after we went through these changes, like, so are these changes good or bad? And my answer to that question is it depends who you are. If you're a family with low income, with not a lot of resources, on the whole, these are great changes. More help is on the way for you. It's the thresholds became easier to qualify for in theory, and I think we'll get here eventually. The form itself should be easier to complete, right? The dollar amounts are larger. So that's a huge win, right? But again, if we're a small business owner, these benefits hurt us. If we have more than one kid at college at once, these benefits are probably hurting us. We're not being punished for the 529 savings we have for our siblings anymore. Beautiful. If we contribute to a 401k, 403b, those aren't going to hurt our financial aid eligibility. Beautiful. So again, those are some of the wins here. So I as promised, I was just talking to someone in chat that said, I just lost my job. Where do I put that on the FAFSA or the CS profile or whatever, right? You don't have that opportunity, and they're just asking about 2022 income. So what do we do? And colleges are going to package our financial aid just based on 2022 income. This is when we're going to go back to colleges. And yes, what we're doing technically is negotiating, but it's important we don't use that word. It really is. We have a lot of our colleagues on our team, right? If you go look at the experts on our team, you can meet with the financial aid director at Harvard or MIT or Oklahoma or Denison or the former director at USC. They'll all say the same thing. They don't like being on that side of the fence, whether they're there currently or were there. they don't like the word negotiating, and that kind of matters. The vernacular matters. We are appealing for additional financial aid or scholarship consideration. So that is when you're going to say, yes, I understand I got the financial aid offer based on 22 income. Here's what's going on now, right? I lost my job. Here's the documentation. Here's what I'm projecting for my income this year, etc. Now, there is and I talked about the fact that, and we'll show a slide after this here, that if you have more than one kid in school at once, that's going to be huge ammunition of appealing this year, knowing that most schools are no longer considering that fact, which is just insanity, just ridiculous. But I mainly want to plant the seed that this is a thing. You want to have the mindset as you go to make this one of the biggest investments of your life. Like most other major investments you've made, buying a car, buying a home, whatever, we're not accepting that first offer. And that's got to be your, again, mindset. There is a method to the madness. And I will say this is a lot more sophisticated than kind of trying to get a better deal, whether it's again in real estate or whatever. There is an absolute method to the madness, but that's something that at this we'll talk about ad nauseum in the coming months when we get into kind of that main season. But I just want everybody to know this is a thing, and you want to. It's really important to have that mindset. That's where it starts. Okay, Peggy, you can probably go to the next slide here before we talk about next steps. Yeah, and I would, and I got a question here about appealing early decision. This is something that we've done a ton of already this year. It just actually had a great success story at Babson here locally for me. ED package, $10,000 more based on the appeal. So yeah, obviously we lose some leverage in that we're not able to say, hey, I got a better deal from this college because we signed a contract saying that we're going to go to their college if we get an offer, but there's still a lot of opportunities there. So again, that's something that if you're in that boat, I'd recommend you consider talking to us about that specifically. But yeah, you see this one here, right? Where the this new rule, even though it's the federal rule, it doesn't mean colleges have to follow it. Some are going to do it and do it with pleasure. Others are not, right? And others, and we've talked to a ton of colleges here, others are saying it kind of depends how much families push back. And for those that push back around this sibling deal, we're going to do our best to work with them. If they don't, they don't, right? So again, this is the onus is on us as the consumer here. And I think that's our last slide here, Peggy, before we talk about next steps. So a couple things here, and I'll go over specifics in just a minute and give you guys some visuals to look at. But we're not going anywhere. Okay, this is, and obviously we understand that we went on at a feverish pace, and and I don't want to say that that's atypical because it's not. Usually we cover a lot of content in a relatively short amount of time. Hopefully, what do? We answered over 100 questions, so that's pretty good. But we still have, I don't know, about 100 more left unanswered. But we don't leave anybody out to dry. We're not going anywhere. We do this at least on a weekly basis. So please, if nothing else, continue to follow along with us and just continue to get yourself educated at every stage of this process. But if you want to take it a step further, if you want to work with us in a one-on-one capacity and just get some of your questions, because I did my best to answer all the questions that I could, but I know for a handful of you, I said, listen, you got to meet with us because we'd have to unpack that further in order for us to be able to give a recommendation on how to value property or who should be the custodial parent or how to. There was a question around 529s and a liquidation that's now in a savings account, right? These are some of the questions that I'm off the top of my head here. I wasn't trying to dismiss you. But that's the most genuine way I can answer the question. So, like I said, we always show some love to our and Peg, if you haven't already, if you can throw this link in the chat, we always show some love to our live attendees. At a minimum, what I would recommend if you want some one-on-one time, you can go just right via your free account here. You just hit the upgrade button, and if you haven't set up your account, mycap.collegepro.com, hit upgrade or talk to an expert in the top right. Right. And then once you go to do that, you select this premium plus expert package, put in FSA 20, and we'll get 20% off. You just got to do that at some point by 12 Eastern time tonight. Like I said, we always give our Peggy, and I love the live performances, right? I mean, it's very rare that we get to be face to face, so this is where we got to get our thrills, right, Peggy? So we try to hook it up for those that can be live.
Yeah, and don't miss that apply coupon when you, or code, when you click on talk to an expert, or it might say upgrade for you, that green button. Um,
Go
it's
here.
gonna say apply code. I don't know if we can get that far. Oh
So let
no,
me see
this
if I went to go meet with Peggy. Let me see if it says it. Yeah, I think I pick a time.
no, it's
Well,
already,
yeah.
yeah.
So I guess
Passed.
that's not
But
a good
it'll say
example.
apply code, because we did one last week and a lot of people are like, I couldn't find it. It's there. Just look for it. Before you put in your credit card, you're gonna apply that code and see your savings. So just watch
And you
out
can
for that.
use that, you can decide if you want to meet with myself or Peggy or anybody on our team. You're going to be in incredible hands. Any of our experts, this is their sweet spot. I promise it's the best team of experts on planet Earth. It doesn't matter who you meet with, you're going to be in great hands. I can assure you. And you can use that hour at any point over the next year. Obviously, FAFSA is top of mind for everybody, but maybe you want to review the CSS profile, which we'd recommend if you completed it, you do in that hour. You want to use it for appeals, you got something wonky going on, whatever, it's yours. And those are, I would describe you as like a DIYer if you're like, look, I'm all over this, but I just want another set of eyes, or I just want to gut check some things or get some recommendations. If you're like, I am just like completely freaked out. I don't want to mess this up, whatever. We can do the CSS profile for you or review it if you've already submitted it. JP Schmidt, who's the former director of financial aid, he's one of our buddies, one of our, somebody you can meet with here. And he says 7 out of 10 families will make a mistake on the FAFSA and or CSS profile that will cost them money, right? So that's to me kind of an alarming statistic where it might be worth at a minimum getting a gut check. If you want us to do the forms for you, the CSS profile we can manually complete for you. The FAFSA is like we're doing in we're just like right in the living room doing it together type of deal. That is an option as well. Obviously, the price point is different. We try to make it as affordable as possible. But if that's you, just get started and you'll be able to sign up right there, and we'll get you, we get in there tomorrow, quite literally. Our team will get pinged instantaneously. You'll get kind of a welcome email. Here's what we need from you, and we'll get started tomorrow. So those are two things that we recommend. We have more comprehensive packages. If you're an underclassman, for example, go in and check out our Wake Me Up When It's Over packages. It's probably too late for those for most of you that are class 2024. Again, go look at them and see if you think there's value there. But for most of you, consider one of these two. If you're a family that says, look, I need help, but I can't afford any help, write into us at support@collegeaidpro.com. We'll give you premium access to the platform for free, right? Generally speaking, that's $149. We'll comp that for you. We don't verify anything, or we ask obviously that you're honest. But if you can't afford the $149, just write in support@collegeaidpro.com. We'll get you on the premium version for free. Unfortunately, we can't get you the hour with the experts just because we have to pay those guys handsomely, unfortunately. And the forms package, but we can still get you a ton of value, a ton of help. And it doesn't need to cost you anything. So just please take advantage of that. And again, you can be totally anonymous. So hopefully you're feeling comfortable if that resonates with you. Did I let's see, did I miss any biggies here? Peg, I see a couple of you.
No, I think you
Yeah.
got it, and I
Okay.
can put the page in the chat again for everybody, so you can reference it. There is a deadline, so that's in there. Yeah, so as Matt said, you can capture the discount. You don't have to book your meeting tonight. You can just capture the discount. But don't wait, we have a big team of pros that we've built. But you don't want to wait till the day you want to meet. You want to make sure you get it, and so it's convenient for your schedule.
Yep, 100%. All right, guys. Well, look at awesome questions. You'll get You will get the recording sent out tomorrow. I can't remember if it gets sent out tonight or tomorrow.
I think it's tomorrow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we'll get that out tomorrow. Again, I think we did your our best. Let's see. Yeah, we got over 100 questions answered, Peggy. That's not too stinking bad, but we really appreciate all the participation. Um, and again, just book some one-on-one time with us if it makes sense. If not, just continue to follow along with us, right? I mean, we're going to be here for every pain point in this process. So yeah, thanks again, and welcome back to our OGs, and welcome to any folks that were new here.
Yeah. A lot of deep breaths. You'll get through it.
You will. You will. Thank you, Peggy, my dear. I will see you tomorrow.
All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Bye, guys.